Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jabihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Namalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Nandana Pradajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purujaka Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purujaka Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, I always forget. Chad, you there?
Hare Krishna, 23.
Is it verse 24?
23.
23. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 10th day of January 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are studying chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, and we are on verse 23, at the very top of page 210. Gata Sangasya Muktasya Jnanavastita Chetasaha Yagyaya Chadatak Let's try that one again. Yagyaya charatak. Page 210, 210. Top of the page. Karma. Samagram. Pravaliyate. Gata sangasya muktasya. Muktasya. Jnanavastita chetasaha. Chetasaha. Yagyaya charatak karma. Samagram pravaliyate. Gata sangasya muktasya. Jnanavastita chetasaha. Yagyaya chadatak karma. Samagram pravaliyate. Katasangasya muktasya. Jnanavastita chetasaha. Yagyaya chadatak karma. Samagram pravaliyate. I'm going to ask Chad. Is that okay? Chad, go for it.
Gata sangasya muktasya.
Gata sangasya muktasya.
Jnanavastita chetasaha.
Jnanavastita chetasaha.
Yagnaya charata karma.
Yagyaya charatak karma.
Samagram pravaliyate.
Samagram pravaliyate. Anyone else?
Can I say one thing real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tapas, for your service. Haribol. I
Right.
think he's up too. Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, Tapas, you're on.
Gata sangasya muktasya
Gata sangasya muktasya.
jnanavastita chetasya
Jnanavastita chetasaha.
jaggad acharata karma
Yagyaya charatak karma.
samagram pravaliyate.
Samagram praviliyate. Okay, word by words. Gata sangasya, of one unattached to the modes of material nature. Muktasya, of the liberated. Jnana avastita, situated in transcendence. Chetasaha, whose wisdom, yagyaya, for the sake of yagya or Krishna. Acharatak, acting, karma, work, samagram, in total. Praviliyate, merges entirely. Translation. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Purport. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contamination of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices, because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person, Krishna or Vishnu. The resultant reactions to all such work certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this concept of yagya, which is being introduced again here, is very interesting. Because we learned in the third chapter that yagya means sacrifice, but it's also a name for Vishnu. Very interesting. It's also a name for Vishnu. Meaning that when we're acting purely in Krishna consciousness, everything we do, every breath, every walk, every word is for the sake of Krishna. In other words, we never forget the connection Okay, I'm getting up and brushing my teeth. I'm brushing my teeth for Krishna, you know, so that I can keep my teeth and nicely pronounce the mantras or whatever. You know, this, in other words, to maintain the health of the body is for the service of Krishna. It's not just so I can have a strong body and enjoy. I'll tell you a little aside. I take a walk almost every day up Cass Avenue. It's become pretty austere at 6:30 in the morning. It's still under 50 degrees. And I had the wind a couple of days ago. My God. Well, there I am, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, going as fast. There's a new gym. It's called the Yard Gym. And it's packed early in the morning. I mean, it's 40 degrees, 45 degrees. And the people who are coming there they're dressed with short shorts on, and so they can do all the exercises. So they're running through. And it's not an ordinary gym. It's not like, I never went to them, but I used to know about it. They had a 24-hour fitness, basically a whole bunch of exercise machines. You come there, you can take a shower, you know, and get on there. And this one, there's coaches, and there's music playing. And you know, everyone's doing the same thing. And then after a little while, they run around the block. I sometimes run into them. I have to, you know, skirt around it. So it's a whole regimen. It must be at least $100 a month as a tuition, you know, or whatever they call it. So they're working harder than me. I mean, I'm taking a walk, but they're like getting into it, you know. And they're all between 20 and 30. You know, these are young people, you know. So what's the purpose? I mean, I'm making a sacrifice, I'm walking, but I'm chanting also. That's also a sacrifice. In fact, Krishna says in the 10th chapter that what it says? I forget the Sanskrit, but he says of all sacrifices, I am japa. In other words, if you're chanting his name, then that he identifies with that. That's a very, you know, good connection. So the thing is, we're both performing sacrifice, but one sacrifice is to get a strong body so you can better enjoy. You know, I mean, that's what they're not doing it for Krishna. They're doing. But my japa sacrifice and the walk sacrifice. All right, I want to stay healthy also, but so I can continue doing service. I've been working on Prabhupada's books for 50 years, and there's still work to do. You know, there's always going to be work to do. So I want to keep doing that. And I want to be able to come to the temple and do the services that I do. So that's why I want to stay as healthy as possible, as long as possible. Okay, I'm not a young whippersnapper anymore, but you know, I do kirtan and whatever I do. So and of course, the important thing is that I'm conscious of that. That if I am always conscious of it, sometimes I'm just trying to avoid some trash in the street or you know whatever. But to say constantly what I am doing, every breath, every step, oh, this is for Krishna, this is for Krishna, this is for Krishna. Because don't forget, we're trying to come to the point, the perfection of Krishna consciousness on this plane is to always remember Krishna. Even sleeping, you're dreaming of Krishna. Prabhupada always said 24 hours a day. Well, I got a long way to go. You know, I got to admit, I'm not dreaming of Krishna every night. But, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, my question is, for us that have like a job during the day, and so I had a situation today. It's interesting we're speaking on this.
Try to hold it. Yeah.
So today I had a hard time because I was like working, people were calling in, Abby's there, she's dependable. And so I was getting a little bit anxious. And I was listening to Keshava, and he was talking about like switching, that everything we do is service.
Yeah.
So I had to like think to myself, okay, why am I here? And is this for me, or is this also service for Krishna? And is it service for Krishna?
Yeah. The thing is, most people, you know, when the movement started, if you wanted to join the Hare Krishnas, you had to move in. You know, and sometimes the place you move in is not that great. You know, they had a house and there were 3 people, 4, 10 people in a room, you know what I mean? They're mostly brahmacharis. Then, you know, we had facilities for ladies also, and it was difficult. So, but the movement is not like that anymore. Most of the people who are householders, they're living outside. you know, and they're supporting the temple, and it's like a, you know, like, so you got to make a living, right? Now you have to choose a living that's not overtly sinful. You're not going to work in a bar. You're not going to, you know, work in the supermarket is difficult because you have to deal with, you know, meat and everything. So you have to. That's an important aspect. But the idea is that, okay, you set up in your home. You know, what's on the wall? What music is playing? You know, what food are you eating? You know. So you have to try to make it as a temple. Like you go to some of these Indians' houses, they always have a room where there's sometimes, you know, small deities or pictures at least, you know, it's a worship room. And they gather there, you know, if they're really good together as a family, I think it's once a day, chant Hare Krishna, read a little Shastra, like that, you know. And the food you eat is cooked according to, you know, strict vegetarian style. It's open, it's offered to Krishna. So you, as much as possible, you bring Krishna consciousness into your home. But at the work, it's difficult. You know, what can you do? I mean, you have certain freedom, but mostly you have to talk. Main thing is to talk. You know, it will may make you forget Krishna. So you have to, you know, pray that you can remember Krishna more during the day. That you can, you know, insert Krishna, and any of your co-workers who might be interested, you may, you know, like that, you know, that's a very nice thing, and then say, okay, you know, invite them to the temple, you know, like that. And so the idea is as much as possible, while maintaining, you have to maintain your body together. If you have a family, apartment, whatever, you know, you have to do that. So if your actual desire is to please Krishna, serve Krishna, do some mission to Krishna, then that can all, the maintenance itself can be a service, because it's enabling you to do the direct service that you do. So in that way you can remember it that way. Admittedly, it's more difficult because there's so many distractions out there. That's why, you know, I just felt so fortunate over the years, even because you know, my mother was still alive for quite a few years. She lived to be 96. And so she passed in 2006, but I joined the movement in 75, so that was like 31 years, you know. And of course she got old, and you know, and my brother was there to take care of her, because the devotees sometimes, well, I have to spend, you know, a month now with my mother and take care, you know, like that. But I never had to do that. I would visit, you know, for a few days and come back, you know. And my mother took care of my father when he was passing, and my brother took care of my mother. And my brother, he's now 81. His son is, you know, young and wealthy, so he'll take care of him. So I didn't have the family thing, you know. My family is ISKCON devotees, so that's ideal, you know. So the thing is, Prabhupada has this famous phrase, you know, do the needful, do what's practical, to maintain yourself on an even keel in Krishna consciousness, associate with devotees as much as possible. Now with so much media, you know, you can have, you know, all of Prabhupada's lectures in your hand and your iPhone, you know, and whenever the opportunity comes, you're taking lunch, you got your headphones in, or you know, your iPods, whatever they call, AirPods, earpods, and you can be Krishna conscious. And whenever there's an opportunity, you try to, you know, invite your, you know, one of your coworkers. What are you into these days, Abby? I see you kind of got a glow about you. What is it you're doing? He said, yes, I've been chanting Hare Krishna. You know, here's a book. So take some books with you, you know, little books.
I did bring I bought a little Krishna and Radha. So I have that in my office.
Oh,
under a little flower.
Yeah, and sometimes someone will see that and say, what's that, Abby? Oh yeah, this is Krishna. Let's preach, you know. So you have to find a way somehow to keep yourself Krishna conscious. It's a struggle, but then, you know, then maybe there'll be a vacation. You know, you can take a trip to another temple, or maybe there's a festival that you can go to, you know, and spend some quality time. So you manage that way. All right. So I wanted to this word. So we hear on what was the verse 23, right? Okay, so Krishna is speaking about yajnaya charatag, this word that was difficult, we tripped over. For the sake of yajna, Krishna. You see that? Acting for the sake of sacrifice. You know, since you all have books, turn to page 146. There is a relative verse there. It's text 9 in the last chapter, And it's very similar. Krishna is laying down the principle here that he's now explaining in text in chapter 4. See that? Okay. So we don't have to chant it, but I'll just explain it. The first word is yagyartat. You see that word yagya is there also. And arta means for the sake of. Yagya, done only for the sake of yagya or Vishnu. You see? So again, here is that word that yagya can also mean Vishnu, because when we really understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we try to sacrifice as much of our time and as much of our energy for the service. So that sacrifice is important. And the lesson of this verse is amazing. Now there's been a little editing, change, revision. Instead of work done as a sacrifice of Vishnu has to be performed, it reads work has to be performed as a sacrifice of Vishnu. All your work. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So the idea is that, as you know, we understand the philosophy. We are all old souls. You know, we've existed since the beginning of time, but we forgot all of that. But what we've done in those past lives is with us now. There are reactions, good and bad. Good meaning that, you know, we got a good birth. We got a birth in America. We're living in San Diego. A lot of people would, you know, think that's a good fortune. And there's you know, things that are not so great. You know, didn't make a lot of money and whatever. These are all material. But those reactions, probably would sometimes call them resultant actions. Reactions. It's Indian English. So reactions, good or bad, you know, materially good or materially bad, are all bad because they keep you here. In other words, if you do a lot of pious work, you know, just material piety, you're very kind, you sacrifice your time for poor people and you try to feed them and all, you know, good stuff. Then that goes all into your account, and in your next life, you may be born in a wealthy family, very pious family, you may be beautiful, strong, you know, whatever. These are material results. But you're still in a material body. You got to get those so-called good results and work them off in your next birth. So you're still within the material world. So that's why this principle, yagyartar kamanon yatra, that work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, or work has to be done as a sacrifice. Work means any activity. Whatever you do, it should be consciously done. Okay, this is for the sake of Krishna. I'm getting up now in the morning. I'm getting up 2 hours earlier than I used to. Okay, the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going to chant my rounds. So it's for Krishna. I'm not doing it because it feels good. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. You know, so that's called yagya. Now that, as opposed to, you know, building more karma, you're getting rid of karma. The more that we do with that, the more our previous karma is eradicated. And in fact, the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra is so powerful that even if you just chant one round, one name, you can't chant one name. Chanting means repeating. Even if you just utter one name, you've just eliminated eons of karma. That's how powerful it is. But the goal of the chanting is not just to get free of karma and get liberation. The goal is to attain love for Krishna. And for that we have to come to the point of chanting purely. Means no offenses, no inattention, no lapses. No, you know, it's not so easy. But there are steps, and the first step is to become committed and realize the importance, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, of let's get free of birth and death. Okay, and to do that, I'll chant Hare Krishna. And along the way, you find out that you don't even care about liberation. I don't care as long as I can chant, as long as I can serve you, Krishna. You know, that's the prayer of Lord Chaitanya. He says, Nadanang, Nadanang, Nasundinim. I don't want wealth, I don't want followers, I don't want a beautiful wife, I don't want this, I don't want that, and I don't even want liberation. And what do you want? I just want service to you, my Lord, in a pure mood. Ahoituki means free from all material motivation. And what's the motivation? Just to see you happy. That's pure love. To take pleasure solely in the pleasure of the Lord. And because we're part and parcel of Krishna, we'll also become pleased. You see? And he'll reciprocate. Bhakti means reciprocal. You'll feel Krishna's blessing upon you. And the first blessing is, like I was just talking to a friend on the phone. He's in Florida, and he's having a little trouble with his back, and he's older than me. And so he describes when he first started chanting. You know, he was kind of depressed. This is in New York. You know, his marriage broke up, and so he found the devotees. You know, and he was attracted to chanting especially. So he got on the train, the subway. You know, it's like a 25-minute trip to the temple. So he'd chant Hare Krishna. By the time he got to the temple, his depression, his mood was completely changed. Now we may also feel that. It's such a, you know, and that's great, because even though it may be a material thing, you know, in one sense, but it's an attractive thing. Oh, I can counteract my down mood, and you know, by chanting. Let me keep doing it. And the more you do that, the more all the other benefits come. The detachment from Maya, the interest in Krishna's words. This is the words of Krishna and his pure devotee, the one I'm chanting. Well, this is some kind of mystical power here. So it's all auspicious. So that's the idea. The chant, you know, we start out with the motive of getting free of you know, down mood and you know, being born in hell. I don't want to go to hell. I'd rather, you know, let me chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And before long, your motive changes. You're chanting just because it's what you're supposed to do, the spiritual master, and it brings such relief and joy and happiness. You're getting a taste, ruchi, for the holy name and everything that goes with Krishna consciousness. And that's how it develops. So, Yagyata Kaminona, this is a key verse, and it's very much related to today's verse. Whatever we do that's not in the mood of sacrifice for Krishna, that's keeping us bound here. That's the idea. So we want to try to, the work, the activities of a person who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Means that there's no bad reaction, it's all good, purification. Okay, text 24. Brahmapanam Brahmahavir. Okay. Brahmagno Brahmanahutam. Brahmaivatena Gantavyam. Brahma Karma Samadhina. Okay. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Purport. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul, entangled in material contamination, is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely yogurt. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna, or activities, sacrifices, simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness, or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma, Brahman, means spiritual. The Lord is a spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahma Jyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti, but when the Jyoti is covered by illusion or Maya or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are, all combined together, Brahman, or the Absolute Truth. The Absolute Truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetailed for the cause of the Absolute Truth regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman, or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi, or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna, or sacrifice for the Absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the Absolute, the Supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Okay. So, this is a famous verse, Brahmaparnam Brahmahavir. This is, everything is Brahman. Hari Bol. Bhakta Mark. So what does this mean? Well, it was kind of what I was speaking about earlier, is that there's a verse in the 11th canto, it goes something like this, which describes Kayena Bacha Manasindriyavam Buddhyatmanama, no, I forget the Sanskrit. Karoti yad yad sakalam padasmai Narayanayeti samarpayantar. Narayan is another name for Krishna. Okay? So what it means there is that whatever you do with your body, with your senses, with your mind, your intelligence, with everything you have at your disposal, if whatever you're doing, you think, oh, this is for Narayan, this is for Narayan, this is for Krishna. You're walking from here to there, you know, it could be anywhere. Okay, this is for Narayan. I have to go here to catch the bus, to get my job, to pay my rent, so that I can continue to worship Krishna and keep body and soul together. So this is all devotional service, you see? Then even ordinary material activities, so-called material activities that you perform, this is simply to facilitate my service to Krishna. So you're remembering Krishna, which is the main thing, but you're also remembering your relationship with Krishna. It's not that you're remembering Krishna at a distance and you're not involved, you know, but you're remembering, oh, this is part of my duty in serving Krishna. So that's what's described there. Then everything you do merges into transcendence. Means there's no material reaction. Rather, there's a spiritual reaction, which is very positive. You're purifying your consciousness. Because don't forget, the key event in our future is leaving the body. That's going to, what the state of our consciousness is at that moment is going to determine our future. So we want to think, okay, so very logically, let me try to remember Krishna as much as possible from moment to moment. Fill my day with Krishna consciousness. So whenever it comes, I'll remember Krishna. Right? That's logical. And so that's how Prabhupada set up the movement. He said that he created duties to perform for the devotee, the first devotees. There was no elaborate temples and everything. It was just this little storefront. But there was a strict time when they would come for class, and you could clean, and then he started printing back to Godhead. That was a big thing, to get that together, and then they'd go out and sell those, So gradually he filled up the whole day with Krishna conscious duties for everybody. And even devotees that wanted to quit their job, Satsut Maharaj and Brahmananda, they had jobs with the city. One was a welfare worker, one was a teacher, So they wanted to quit and move into the little storefront. But I said, no, keep the job. They didn't have, money was hardly, and give your salary to Krishna. So Steve, I think before it was like that, was Satsut Maharaj. He said, well, how can I give it to Krishna? Prabhupada said, just give it to me. I'll make sure Krishna gets it, So it was spent on boga that they cooked at the feast, or paying for the paper to print it, it's all Krishna stuff. So that's still the basic principle of temple life. It gives you a context in which you can perform the same things you were doing before in Maya consciousness, but now it's being done for Krishna. And you're becoming more and more detached from Maya, detached from involvement. Or, even though you maybe were deeply enmeshed, and many of the people were at the early days, in sinful activities, sex and drugs, rock and roll, because you had the prasadam, and you had the mantra, and you had the chanting, and you had the feast and the festivals, you soon forgot about that. There's something called Taurya Trikena. You're not going to hear about this from anyone else probably. Taurya Trikena are the three things called singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments. Now, we can easily understand how that can be a force for Maya. think of rave. Do they still have raves? You know, I mean, right? All music and dancing and, you know, take little drugs, right? So that's singing and dancing and playing musical instruments, but it's in the service of Maya. And when you're all through with it, you know, you're in worse shape, you know, than you started. But the same things. What is the kirtan? Singing and dancing and playing musical instruments, right? So Lord Chaitanya, he's God, you know, he said, well, these Kali Yugites, there's no way they're going to sit in meditation and make any advancement, you know. In order to become absorbed in God, then you know, we're going to feature this holy name, this Hare Krishna mantra, the name Krishna and Rama and Hare. They themselves, those names embody the divine, divinity in sound. I made a little poem, you know. This chanting of the holy name, it makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the ground, resplendently. It means the Hare Krishna mantra. It makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the ground. Resplendently, it reigns supreme, divinity in sound. Divinity in sound. Oh yeah, it's filled with transcendental bliss and peerless purity. The holy, oh yes, the holy name of Sri Hari is surely all that be. I'm sorry, my brain isn't what it used to be. But that divinity and sound, that's what you know. And if you actually chant and hear, it doesn't matter what your situation is, you'll be associating with Krishna, and he'll be purifying you. You're becoming more attracted to Krishna. So that is the big yagya in this age. Sankirtan Jagya. It's a sacrifice, but it's a joyful sacrifice. You give a little time, you know, you dance a little bit, use a few calories, you know, you raise your voice. And the main thing is you're there, and you're hearing, and you're chanting, and you're hearing, and you're chanting, and purification. Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the clearance of the heart. This one verse I'll share with you. This is the first verse of the Shikshastika. Shikshastika means 8 verses of instruction that Lord Chaitanya wrote, all about the chanting of the holy name and the result of chanting. So he starts out, the first verse is like the basis. It's the basis of the whole movement of Hare Krishna. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahada Vagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandika Vatadanam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratibadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatmasnaparam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So this is the basis of this whole movement. So what he says there, he says, all glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames. Now samsara is this birth and death, old age and disease. It's like a wheel. And it's a wheel of suffering. So it's like a fire, you know, the forest fire. So it extinguishes it. All glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. It's all a process of purification. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Sri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. So that's the basis of this movement. And the wonderful thing is, anybody can join. It's not a question of you have to be born in a Brahmin family. Are you Indian? You know, no, there's no anyone. And so it's for the whole world, for everybody in the world. And as soon as you actually take part, even with a little sincerity, you feel the effects and you join into it. So we should, you know, really, whenever there's a kirtan going, we should try to participate. All right, Brahmapanam Brahmahavir. So the perfect example of this verse is a nice kirtan. Everything is merging into transcendence. There's nothing material about it. All right, text 25. Bottom of the page, 211. Daivamevapare yagyam yogina payupasate brahmagnavapare yagyam yagyenavopajuvati. Wow, we got 3 yogis in this verse. It's all about sacrifice. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. Purport. As described above, a person engaged in discharging duties in Krishna consciousness is also called a perfect yogi or a first-class mystic. But there are others also who perform similar sacrifices in the worship of demigods, and still others who sacrifice to the Supreme Brahman, or the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. So there are different kinds of sacrifices in terms of different categories. Such different categories of sacrifice by different types of performers only superficially demark varieties of sacrifice. Factually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is also known as Yajna. All the different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within 2 primary divisions, namely sacrifice of worldly possessions and sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. Those who are in Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possessions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others who want some temporary material happiness sacrifice their material possessions to satisfy demigods such as Indra, the sun god, etc. And others who are impersonalists sacrifice their identity by merging into the existence of the impersonal Brahman. The demigods are powerful living entities appointed by the Supreme Lord for the maintenance and supervision of all material functions like the heating, watering, and lighting of the universe. Those who are interested in material benefits worship the demigods by various sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals. They are called Bhav Ishwaravadi, or believers in many gods. But others who worship the impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth and regard the forms of the demigods as temporary, sacrifice their individual selves in the supreme fire and thus end their individual existences by merging into the existence of the Supreme. Such impersonalists sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation to understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme. In other words, the fruit of workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices his material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the Supreme. For the impersonalist, the fire altar of sacrifice is the Supreme Brahman, and the offering is the self being consumed by the fire of Brahman. The Krishna conscious person, like Arjuna, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus all his material possessions as well as his own self, everything, is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus he is the first-class yogi, and he does not lose his individual existence. Hare Krishna. So, sacrifice can also be a means of also staying bound up in this material world. Depends on what you're sacrificing for and who you're sacrificing to. Like the people who get up, some people are on the road at 4 o'clock, right? Driving to work, or maybe 4:30, or 5 o'clock, whatever. But they're also getting up early. They're making a sacrifice for the household, for their maintenance, to get ahead in the job, whatever it may be, right? It's a big austerity and a sacrifice. But there's nothing transcendental about it. It's keeping them bound up in this material world. And even these sacrifices for the demigods and for Brahman, to merge into Brahman, they're all misguided. They're all misguided. They're all in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, 2nd verse. There's a verse, the famous phrase, Dharma projitakaitavotra. The word atra means here in the Bhagavatam, we're kicking out, not just rejecting, we're kicking far away all cheating religion, cheating dharmas. Cheating being that you're taking up this word, this dharma, but you're not getting the real result of dharma, which is liberation and going back to Godhead and resuming your original relationship with Krishna for eternity. That's the goal of real dharma. That's explained in the 2nd chapter. But here, and Prabhupada points out, I think in one lecture, that Sridhar Swami, the original authorized commentator on the Bhagavatam, points out that the desire for liberation and sacrificing just to merge into the oneness of Brahman, so I don't take birth again, that is also a material desire. As Prahlad says in his famous prayer, Prayena Deva Munayo Swava Mukti Kama, Maunam Chalandi Bhajane Naparata Nishta. Prayena means, for the most part, these munis, these learned sages, yogis, they're lusty for their own liberation. In other words, it's within the category of material desire. I want to be free from birth, old age, disease, and death, and the heck with everyone else. I'm leaving the city, I'm moving off and going up to some little secluded forest in the Himalayas, and I'm going to meditate and merge into Brahman, and that way I'll get liberated. But Prabhupada always quotes a verse from the 10th canto. It says, well, you're not really going to stay liberated. By great austerity, just imagine what it would try to be like to detach yourself from the object of the senses. You have no holy name, you have no association, no prasadam, All you have is your own willpower. No, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm just going to think of Om, 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 Om. And if I'm really successful, I'll merge into Brahman, into the Brahma Jyoti, and I'll give up my individual existence. No more birth, no more death, no more old age. Oh, how wonderful, I'll be in such bliss. It's like the bliss of a sensory deprivation chamber. I've never been in one, but I know what they are, The temperature is just right, the density of the water is just right, you're floating, right? Oh, what a relief, But how long can you stay there? I got to get out of here, I got to go to work. My kids are waiting to I got to cook for them. You can't be happy there. It's not natural. Our original nature, we are all persons, just like Krishna is. We have our original relationship, our bodies, our senses, our consciousness, to relate to Krishna and all the individuals in the spiritual world. It's like the material world, but there's no, Prabhupada's famous word, inebriety. Inebriety means drunkenness. But in Prabhupada's vocabulary, it means negativity. There's no downside. There's a huge downside to any pleasure you enjoy here. It's going to end, and they're going to keep you, attached to this world. And then you'll die, and you'll be wanting that same pleasure, and you'll get another birth, and maybe, according to your karma. So that's a huge downside. A little bit of pleasure, tickling, and a long, suffering in the material world. But for Krishna consciousness, okay, you give a little time. What's one lifetime in millions of lifetimes? Try to dedicate this, and the future opens up for you. Okay, maybe you're not going to complete the course completely in this one lifetime, but everything you've done, you take it to your next lifetime. Everything material you've done, you still leave it behind. Krishna's immortal words, 10th chapter, Mrityu sarvaharashchaham. As death, I take everything away. Prabhupada says, okay, people don't want to see God now, they want to live there. They'll see God when death comes, and everything, despite their strongest objection, desperate, no, everything is taken away, beginning with the body. And according to your activity, your acts, you're going to get your next body. It may not be such a nice one. So you're completely trapped here until you accept the philosophy here, and you start actually working for sacrifice for the ultimate good, for the person Jagya of Vishnu. And then that verse, Cheto Darpanam Arjunam, we take advantage of that. Begins with purifying the heart, and then Bhava Maha Davagni. What does that mean? Bhava means birth, old age, disease, and death. The word Bhava means change. And it's come to mean, the changes we don't want. Birth, old age, disease, death, nobody wants them. But that's Bhava, and it's a big forest fire. Being trapped in a forest fire. Can you imagine how painful and frightening and that is? That's what we're in. We're deluded to think that we can be safe and happy and peaceful here. It's impossible. You may have it for a few minutes or a few days or even a few years. I got it together, but eventually, getting old, this person dies. Oh my, what happened to my child? It's impossible. And then at the end, everything's taken away. Krishna in the form of death, Mrityu sarvaharas chaham, I am death, taking everything away. And then what? I often like to say, the first thing that happens, because I saw a lot of people die when I was in hospital. I saw it. And mostly they just sedate everybody, because they're freaking out. They're seeing the Yamadutas sometimes. There's terminal restlessness. It's known that every nurse can tell you about it. Yeah, they have visions, of dogs and things, and so we have to put them under, give them a sedative. That's the Yamadutas. They're coming. They're getting ready to get him. And so, so that's what's going on. That's the future of everybody, unless you take care and you purified your consciousness and you're surrounded by devotees chanting, helping you remember Krishna. You have some devotional assets in your background. So you may not go back to Godhead, but you'll go to a place that will facilitate your progress in devotional service. And as death, Krishna will not take everything away. All of those spiritual assets are still yours. Everything material, you have to believe, So that's the difference. The final exam, the devotees are the ones who are most fortunate. Otherwise, these billionaires and millionaires, who knows where they're going. What they had to do in order to get all that money, and everything. And it's all, they have to leave it, and who knows where they're going. So this is a very, what is it? So the yogis perfectly worship the demigod by different sacrifices of them, and some in the fire of Supreme Brahman. So the sacrifice can also be perverted. It can be for material purposes, or it can be for nefarious purposes. There's a whole tantra tradition in India where you can become very expert at controlling others' minds, getting revenge or whatever, So but Krishna consciousness is completely wholesome. It's completely wholesome. It's good for you and for everyone who comes in contact with you, and it's the most positive thing there is in existence. All right, I'm sorry, I kind of took up most of the time. If there are any comments or questions, locally or remotely, Mark, something? But you need the mic. We have one mic circulating.
Well, it's related because you mentioned the spiritual body and stuff. Okay, so what can you tell me? I have a bunch of pulp to chew about mind and intelligence.
I have a what?
Let's say I have a lot of information and data about mind and intelligence, but what can you tell me about false ego? Why people don't talk that much about false ego? Is there not that much to talk about it?
Why don't we discuss the false ego more? You mean here? Because people didn't even know that they have an ego. As much as possible. Yeah. The thing is, it's as close to home as it can be. In other words, what we are trying to do is to discover our real self. We know that we're spirit, not matter. That's a very important first step. But what about that spirit? That spirit is a person. That spirit, we ourselves, we have our own individual relationship with Krishna. So Krishna consciousness is ultimately discovering that relationship and acting in it, even and remembering it at the time of death, so that we resume our service to Krishna in the spiritual world. Now, how that's done is the process of devotional service. You read the Nectar of Devotion. All of the hearing and chanting, remembering, serving, the 9 processes of devotional service, what Prabhupada set up, the 5 most important, which is associated with devotees, chanting the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, living in a holy place, and worshiping the deity with reverence. Now, you can say, well, I don't get on the altar. How can I? You just come and your attitude, and learn the prayers, and chant before Krishna nicely, and you can take advantage, because sometimes you see in the temple room something is not where it's supposed to be. You can, do a little deity worship that way. This is all sacred space. So the point is that that ego, we want to get back into the real ego. Like this is now, all of us sitting here. This is aiding our real sense of self. Whatever we do outside, whatever like that, that's all very evanescent. That's all coming and going. But hearing about Krishna, serving Krishna, thinking of Krishna, that's our eternal reality. The more that we do that in this state, then the more that we'll discover our real relationship with Krishna. And so that's what we're looking at. Our real ego is called Swarup Siddhi. There's a name for it, Swarup Siddhi. And this is really what mukti is. In the mukti means liberation. In the second canto, I think in the last chapter, there's a list of the different topics dealt with in the Bhagavatam. One of them is mukti, liberation. So they're defined. What is mukti? Real mukti. Mukti is not just a negative thing, meaning that I'm free from birth, death, old age, and disease. Now I'm liberated. Now what are you going to do? In other words, it's not enough to just get out of the hospital. Now you have something to do. You're not going to sit down on the curb. Oh, I'm finally cured. No. You have things to do. So he says that muktir hitpa anyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. So it's in terms of the form, because our form is going to be exactly molded to our rasa with Krishna. How we're going to serve Krishna. That's already there, but it's covered by the false ego. We want to get to the real ego. So he says mukti is defined as giving up all these other false forms, like we're sitting now with a material form, but it's constantly changing. And ultimately it's not our real form, right? It's just that so giving all that up and to attain your swarupena vyavastiti. So we're looking to do that, and that's attained to the process of bhakti yoga. But we don't have time, because they're going to open those curtains. Sorry, they're going to both, so we'll have to adjourn. All glories to